Hi guys, welcome back to yet another fun DIY video, although this is not one of my regular videos. The very first thing I want to do is to wish all of you guys a very happy new year. I hope all of you will have an awesomely amazing 2019. If you're new to my channel, this 30-foot sailboat is where I've been living for the past 3 years. But this video is actually not about this boat. This video is about my other boat that I'm in the middle of refitting. To avoid any confusion, by the time you guys see this video, I'll actually be in LA with my girlfriend Ava. I'll be back here in Skive working on Athena sometime in the middle of January. Now I didn't want to leave you guys hanging for too long, so I pre-recorded a couple of videos, and this is one of those videos. New Year's is upon us, and that is typically a time for reflection, so I thought it'd only be fitting we take a look at what happened in 2018 and then maybe a quick look at what could possibly happen in 2019. I began the year by working on the engine compartment. I pulled out the engine and removed the sail drive. Overall, the engine compartment was looking pretty crusty. There was some mold in there, and the old sound insulation was looking super sad. I found some leaks coming from the bottom of the cockpit sole, and those we'll get back to a little later. I emptied out the diesel tank in order to remove it, but I found out that it wouldn't fit through the opening of the engine compartment. After a quick bit of convincing with Mr. Angle Grinder, I was finally able to remove it. I was greeted with the full crustiness of the engine compartment. With all of the hoses and all of the wiring removed, it turned out that there was a little bit of rotten plywood in the aft end of the engine compartment. I spent a bit of time cleaning and sanding, and then I took a closer look at the rotten plywood on the support for the rudder tube. The next step was to remove the rudder that had some rust oozing out of it. My suspicion is that it's one of the welds inside of the rudder that's causing that rust, and that is potentially a very big problem, and that's why I decided to pull the rudder. To remove the rudder, I had to dig a hole, and I learned a very valuable lesson. Frozen ground is, well, frozen. I cut a new piece of plywood to replace the rotten support for the rudder tube and adhered that in place with some thickened epoxy and some fiberglass. The engine compartment was slowly starting to look a lot better. Before continuing work inside the boat, I decided to fix the leaks from the cockpit sole. I found the core to be in good shape, but also found a number of big voids. I ground out the worst of the voids and laid up glass. With the leaks fixed, it was finally time to get some primer applied. It is amazing how big of a difference a fresh coat of paint makes. Having cut the old diesel tank in half, I needed a new diesel tank, so I decided to build a prototype out of some MDF. That way I was absolutely sure it would fit, and it was also easier for me to figure out the placement of access hatches and fittings. To replace the old, crusty mild steel parts of the rudder assembly, I had some new, spiffy stainless steel ones made. A bit of polishing using my angle grinder, which was a somewhat tedious task, turned the spiffiness factor all the way up to 11. Oh, so shiny. Ta-da! The new diesel tank arrived, and it was beautiful. I smile every time I look at this thing. I had some custom nitrile gaskets cut to, again, bump up the spiffiness factor. This thing is starting to look like $1,000,000. Spring came early this year, and what better way to spend a sunny weekend than removing old Threadmaster from the cabin tub. This is when I shifted focus and started working on the outside of the boat. The teak in the cockpit was toast, so I decided to remove it. A delightful way to spend the day for sure. I removed the old propane locker and patched the giant hole that was left behind. Before moving indoors for the summer, I removed a few millimeters of laminate from the side of the hull using a gel plane. This was a step in my 2-year-long osmosis treatment. The gel plane made short work of what would have otherwise been a horrible job. I prepped a ton of holes from old hardware for glass, and after being moved indoors, I started sealing all of those holes. Big holes, cord holes, and lots of small holes. After all of that hole patching, I took a quick detour to remove a false bottom I'd found under the cabin sole. It turned out to be a giant bilge filled with expanding foam, and also a lovely mix of old water and oil. Super, super smelly stuff. Resuming work on the cabin top, I had my first ever experience fairing large surfaces. Oh, there would be a lot more of fairing later this summer. The old hatch frame in the cockpit was only secured by screws and some caulking. That had leaked and caused some rot down below. I figured it would be a much better idea to beef up the frame a little bit and then glass it in place rather than relying on the screws and caulking. This is a much stronger and much neater solution. I decided to do the same with the little area for the engine controls. Again, a much cleaner look and no more pesky leaks. With the help of my amazing girlfriend Ava, we started prepping the hull for the last steps in the osmosis treatment, and this was Ava's first time being in a proper Sail Life video, and we had a lot of fun. See, once you start...
Well, this is no knife to be opening up a box with, okay?
It's the one I use in every episode. Okay, once you do it, you're committed, so you gotta go through, right?
Okay.
Even if it fails.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The most important thing is to stay away from the tape. Whoa! Whoa! Is it making you nervous?
We then proceeded to lay up an extra layer of glass on all of the hull below the waterline. That was a long couple of days, and I am really glad Ava was there to help me. What followed was a grueling few weeks of fairing and sanding. Oh, so much fairing and sanding. As a barrier coat, I used West Systems 105 and 422. I got together an awesome bunch of guys, and in a single day we applied 6 coats, wet on tacky. After thoroughly cleaning and prepping the surface, it was time to apply copper coat as an anti-fouling. We used around 12 packs of the stuff and got it all on there in a single but very long day. With the bottom done, I turned my attention back to the cabin top. More fairing and sanding. After what seemed like an eternity, it was finally time for primer and then for some top coat. She started looking pretty dang spiffy. After a bit of wet sanding and polishing, the paint job turned out absolutely perfect. The summer was over and it was time to leave the shed. Seeing Athena outside again, I realized all the progress I'd made over the summer. She's actually starting to look like a boat again. I spent the last warm day in the fall applying Kiwi Grip to the cabin top. Kiwi Grip is a water-based non-skid and it is very easy to apply as soon as you get a hold of using the textured roller. Using a bit of masking tape and a lot of patience, I was able to put a little Sail Life logo directly into the Kiwi Grip. I think it turned out pretty cool. What better way to end the year than to circle back to working on the engine compartment? I built the last support for the diesel tank, painted everything with a nice bright high gloss white, moved the diesel tank in there, put up sound insulation, and then finally it was time to reinstall the engine and the sail drive. Ta-da! Now let's just take a quick peek at the before. Crusty, crusty, crusty. And then here we've got the after. I would say that's a pretty big improvement. I put in a lot of time working on Athena in 2018, and I think I made some decent progress, especially considering that all the stuff you've seen I did in my spare time and weekends while shooting these videos. 2018 was also a year with a lot of milestones. Athena's finally able to float again, that was a big one. The channel surpassed 50,000 subscribers, and I published my 300th video, just to name a few. But let's take a quick look at what 2019 might bring. A lot is going to be decided by the structural members underneath the cabin sole that I am probably gonna replace. Bracing the hull and getting the new structural members in place is gonna be no small job. My big goal for 2019 is to be able to splash Athena late in the fall and then move aboard over the winter. And that goal is going to dictate the type of jobs I prioritize during the spring and the summer. Any jobs that require me tapping something to the hull are gonna get bumped up the list. So that means new structural members, new cabin sole, new bulkheads, some of the interior. Any jobs that do not involve me tapping something to the hull, well, those I can take care of over the winter, even if it's freezing outside. I would also love to get a tow rail mounted before splashing Athena. The current working plan is to make one out of stainless steel. There are some ideas in play and, well, nothing is set in stone yet, but that should make for some interesting videos. When I get back from LA, it's still gonna be way too cold for me to start working with epoxy. So the plan is to finish working on the pedestal, get the engine all hooked up, figure out the layout in the new head, and also figure out the access into the technical area. Is that gonna be through the head, or am I gonna have to make some kind of hatch in the cockpit? So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up, and I feel like 2019 is going to be the year where I hit bedrock, meaning that's going to be the year where I start seriously rebuilding and there aren't going to be any more stupid surprises. I think that is about it for this video. We've taken a look at all the awesome stuff that happened in 2018, and I do think that was a very good year. And now you guys also have at least a vague idea of the overall plan for 2019. Of course, as we get into the spring, I'll be sure to update you about the plans for the summer. Before ending this video, I want to take a second to wish all of you a Happy New Year and to say thank you to each and every one of you for staying tuned. I'll be back from LA in the middle of January. Eva and I have talked about doing some kind of a live stream before I leave, but I don't know if that's going to be before or after I publish this video, so we'll just have to see. But yeah, Happy New Year's, guys, and that's going to be it for this video. See you!